Hi, my name is Emma, and this is my distance learning final exam for World Studies B. So first we're going to talk about the agricultural unit. The first thing I'm going to talk about is agricultural revolutions. There was a bunch of different revolutions during this time, 3 to be exact. The first was in 8000 BC. It had subsistence farming, with simple tools and manual labor. There was surplus storage and modified environments. Some impacts of this was it increased trade locally, and there was specialization with different jobs. The second revolution was in the 1700s to 1800s. It went along with the Industrial Revolution. There were small machines and the first tractors, family businesses. This caused for better diets, longer lifespans, and the population to increase. And the third and final revolution was from the 1950s to now, and it's the better and more efficient way of farming. There is machinery that is more efficient than used to be, machinery that does things for people now with all the technology we have, GMOs and chemicals. And the impacts of this is it stopped low developed country famines, the food prices fell, and it increased yield issues. Next we're going to talk about food security and undernourishment. Food security is the access at all times to safe and nutritious food to meet delivery needs for active, healthy life. In more developed countries, this would be meat products, and in low developed countries, it would be cereal grains such as corn, maize, wheat, or rice. Undernourishment is the dietary energy. It is the consumption that is continuously below minimum requirement for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. This is 98% in low developed countries such as Sub-Africa or South Asia. And this also, diets depend on the level of development, physical conditions, and the cultural preferences. So in this case, more developed countries have more of an advantage because they are able to ship food in, they are able to get food from all across the world, where in lower developed countries they may not be able to do this. Next we're going to talk about subsistence and commercial agriculture. Subsistence farming is the consumption by farmers, like the family. Usually in low developed countries, 42% are farms. The farms are smaller and they usually use hand tools. Commercial farming is sale of food off the farm, so like grocery stores. This is usually used in more developed countries, and there are less farmers needed. They use more developed technology and tractors, combines, all that kind of stuff. So that is the difference. Subsistence is for less developed hand tools, and commercial is more for grocery stores and more developed technology. Now we're going to talk about agriculture in developing regions. Low developed countries, there are intensive wet rice dominant, which is lots of labor and maxes out land use. It is in East, South, and Southeast Asia, and there's terracing and food fields with water. Intensive white rice not dominant is no rice, harsh climate, and it has more wheat and barley. Pastoral nomadism is subsistence farming. It's arid and semi-arid. It is in North Africa, Southwest Africa, and Central Africa. Borders are a concern in this area. They have a lot of dairy and they move seasonal with the animals. Shifting cultivation is in tropical rainforest areas. They call it the slash and burn issue. They relocate to new fields all the times and they take up a lot of land. They are a threat to cattle ranchers and loggers because of all the space they take up and everything like that. Plantation farming is commercial. It's owned by more developed countries It's subtropical, and they have things such as cotton, sugar, coffee, bananas, and coconuts. Lastly, for agricultural unit, I'm going to be talking about uniform landscapes. Uniform landscapes are an area that reflects spread of pop culture, and it looks similar to other areas. Some examples of this is Port Washington and Mequon Road. It's familiar. It has gas stations, restaurants, coffee places. Another place is 124th and Capitol in Brookfield. There are strip malls, grocery stores, banks, fast food, all stuff that is very convenient and noticeable to the people that live around that area. One other thing that is different is a franchise. A franchise is an agreement between a corporation and local businesses to open in a local area so that they're more familiar to people. They'll get money for it, and lots of different things like that. So that is our agricultural unit. Our next unit is urbanization. So first I am going to talk about urban transportation. Transportation, people don't travel for no reason. They usually have a point of origin and destination. So there's such things as transportation epochs, which are cities that have done well and have also suffered during epochs. Migration patterns, same time, cities retain their physical features. So an example of this is a sail, a wagon, an iron horse, and a steel rail. Another way of transportation is motor vehicles, which is what most people use in these days. 95% of all households have motor vehicles. Policies to keep car fuel down there's policies to keep car fuel down for motor vehicles, and highways and interstates take up a lot of space. Now, there's such thing as also public transportation, which is where people live in crowded cities. They need to get to their work or places like that, and they just don't want to take their car. They can accommodate commuters by building railroads, underground subways. There are many ways in which transportation can be used in urban settings. Next, I'm going to be talking about global urbanization trends. First of all, urbanization is the process with which pop of urban settlements grows. There's two parts. There's an increase in percent of people and an increase in number of people. In more developed countries, 78% are urban areas, and low developed, 49%. The causes of growth usually are migration from rural farm areas or secondary and tertiary jobs in cities that people are moving in for. So that is basically global urbanization trends, just the different ways in people live, why they move to urban areas, and that kind of stuff. Now I will be talking about fishing and aquaculture. Aquaculture is the practice of raising and harvesting fish. The cause of it is overfishing, and 50% of world seafood is actually comes from aquaculture, and it is the fastest growing food production. But some concerns that they have is diseases spread among nearby fish, chemicals damage the ecosystem, and it can escape and breed with native fish. Fish production is the world's oceans into 16 fishing regions. Largest yields is the Pacific Northwest and Pacific Western. Overfishing is a big problem in the world, mostly in the North Atlantic Pacific Oceans, and it's capturing fish faster than it can reproduce, which is never a good thing and is a big problem in our world today. Next, I'm going to talk about GMO versus organic farming. GMO agriculture is genetically modified organisms. They are more resistant to weather, diseases, and chemicals that are on pests or different kinds of weeds, and it lasts longer before it is spoils. And then GMO concerns is it's expensive for poor farmers, and they need to seed each year so that they can get their crops. Some consumers believe it may be unhealthy or lead to immunity, and European countries do not allow it. Lastly, I'm going to talk specifically about our state, with the dairy crisis in Wisconsin. We watched a video in class, and it talked about how less and less people are drinking milk and using dairy products in our world today, which is actually hurting the farmers very much. Milk prices has dropped, and in the video when they made this, it was $21 per pound. So this is a crisis in forcing dairy farmers out of business in the southwest, northwest areas is where it's mostly impacting. The name of the farm was Happy Cow Dairy, and it started in 1923, and one of the quotes that I thought was pretty interesting was, "To just throw my milk away every day is just sickening." And what led to the closing is that these people never were selling their milk. Never. They milk their cows, they put the milk out, and never sold. So they had many issues, and they still did in recent years. So farmers have been trying to deal with this in order for them to get more money. So that is just something close to home to talk about. Lastly, we're going to talk about the cultural unit. First, pop versus folk culture. Pop culture is practiced by groups that are large, different from each other, and they have a variety of personal characteristics. Culture is the body of material, traits, beliefs, and social norms, and defines tradition of people. There are different parts of culture: material, which is physical objects, non-physical ideas, and beliefs and rules. Let's see here. Some examples of folk is local physical land, isolation, mountains. Pop is many countries don't care about physical features, lack of money to purchase, and material. Pop spreads through hierarchical diffusion. And folk is slower to spread. So that is a little bit about pop and folk culture. Next, we are going to talk about ethnic neighborhoods. Ethnic enclaves is a place with high amount of ethnic group that are distinct and different from each other, whether art, food, language, religions, whatever it is. Some benefits of this is the same culture. It helps form agencies, adapt to new cultures, and economic support. Some examples are New York City has Chinatown and Little Italy. San Francisco has Chinatown. And so all these different places bring in this culture so that these people can be here and it can be as if it is their home. Next is endangered languages. Endangered languages is at risk of extinction because it has few surviving speakers, such as one would be Latin. Extinct was once by people in daily activities, but is no longer really used. That would be Latin. Endangered is just languages that are not used as much anymore. Now we're going to talk a little bit about lingua franca, which basically just is a language mutually understood and commonly used by people who have different native languages to communicate. It helps people in order to communicate with each other. They come to a new city, they're not able to talk to other people because they don't know the language, and so it just makes it easier. It is used in media, internet, controllers, pop culture, all those different things. Lastly, since my time on this thing is almost up, Amish versus folk culture. So the Amish are, they try to eliminate things that would drive community apart. The Amish rite of passage is Rumspringa. Folk culture consisting of Christian groups that reject modern technology. Those are the Amish people. They have tourists that visit them, having to move to places like Kentucky, and proximity to big city. Those are all threats to them. And how they do this is they are family owned, they create and sell their culture, and they help persevere culture and bring in income. So this is all the culture. And through all agriculture, urbanization, and culture, I have learned a lot. and have really loved doing this.